Beloved Saints, today's 5-minute message of redemptive history is about Gideon Part 2 from the third book of Redemptive History series, The Unquenchable Lamp of the Covenant. Last time in Part 1, we examined how Gideon was called as a great warrior. Today in Part 2, let us learn how Gideon selected 300 warriors and shared God's grace together. There were about 32,000 soldiers who had gathered by the time Gideon was about to go to war against the Midianites. This was an inferior number compared to the 135,000 soldiers that the Midianite army possessed. However, God said, "The people who are with you are too many," and commanded Gideon to decrease the number of his soldiers. God proclaimed that unless this was done, he would not give Midian into their hands. This was so that the Israelites would not boast against God, saying, "My own power has delivered me." In Judges 7 verse 2, it says, "The Lord said to Gideon, 'The people who are with you are too many for me to give Midian into their hands. For Israel will become boastful, saying, My own power has delivered me.'" So, there were two steps in the process by which God chose the 300 men. First, God commanded that all the men who trembled with fear to turn back. In Judges 7 verse 3, it says, "Now announce to the army, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead." So 22,000 men left, while 10,000 remained. Everyone, fear is something that we do not want to see in a soldier about to go to war. However, God saw that out of the 32,000 men, there were men that were fearful and trembling inside, even though they did not express it outwardly. In war, fear can bring about defeat. This is because when one person is fearful, it can be contagious and it can plant fear in other people's hearts. This is why in Deuteronomy 20 verse 8 it says, "Who is the man that is afraid and faint-hearted? Let him depart and return to his house, so that he might not make his brothers' hearts melt like his heart." Thus, out of the 32,000 men, 22,000 men returned back home, and only 10,000 men remained. Second, God commanded that all men who knelt to drink water be sent back. The remaining 10,000 men were led to the water to drink. There, 9,700 of them knelt down and hurriedly drank the water. The Hebrew word for kneel used in Judges 7:5 is kara, and it does not merely refer to kneeling down, but to kneeling down and bowing to the ground. The 9,700 men had knelt on their knees, stooped down toward the ground, and drank frantically with their faces buried in the water with both hands on the ground. In other words, they did not show any sign of alertness, although they were in a situation where battle could have broken out at any time. However, the remaining 300 men put their hands to their mouths and lapped the water, looking out for the enemy as they drank. In Judges 7 verse 7 it says, "And the Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver you with the 300 men who lapped, and will give the Midianites into your hands. So let all the other people go, each man to his home." So God sent the 9,700 men back home and kept only the 300 men. Beloved saints, this battle between the Israelite army, led by Gideon, and the Midianite army foreshadows the spiritual battle that we will fight against Satan the devil. Everyone, in order for us to be victorious in this spiritual battle, we cannot be afraid or be trembling in fear. In 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 it says, "For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and discipline." In 1 Peter 5 verses 8 to 9, it says, "Be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him, firm in your faith." Everyone, today, let us throw off our fear and have a faith that is alert. And let us all be victorious in our spiritual battles. I bless in the name of the Lord.